As I sat down to write this week's short thought, I felt I wanted, perhaps even needed, to say something about the war in the Middle East. I wanted to express something of my own dismay at the actions of a few powerful men that seem, at least to me, to be clearly wrong. Yet what is there to say? How can I speak about God and my faith whilst also wanting to speak out against something that seems so troubling to me that it makes my blood boil? Years ago, when I was training for ministry, my tutor, Greg Haslam, said something to our group that has stayed with me ever since. He told us that if we were going to lead churches and preach sermons, then we needed to have a disaster sermon. What he meant was that we needed a sermon prepared for a moment when there was a significant disaster that affected the world. I experienced that myself in the week following 9/11, and sadly there have been other times when such a message has been needed. Perhaps we need one again now. When we dig deep and we search our souls to find words in times of disaster, we often encounter something unique, perhaps even a kind of privilege. Through that process, we can discover more about God's sovereignty and encounter a depth to our faith that stays with us long after the moment has passed. So what did I preach about after 9/11? What was my disaster message, if you like? Well, I don't need to search through my old notes to remember it. It is entangled in me, and it's one of the only sermons that I clearly remember. It's from Isaiah 6, verse 1, which says, "In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord, high and exalted, seated on a throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple." A crisis had occurred with the death of a king, yet in that moment Isaiah saw the Lord. The striking part for me, however, comes later in verse 5. Then Isaiah says, "Woe to me, I cried, for I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty." Early in the book, Isaiah had pronounced a series of woes on others. People he believed deserved them. But when he truly encountered the Lord and grasped something of his glory, Isaiah suddenly realized that he himself stood in need of mercy in the light of God's holiness. He saw himself differently, smaller, more fragile, more dependent on the grace given by God. The breaking of him was the making of him. Why share this short thought? Well, certainly not to promote an old sermon of mine, but rather it's because when we face something that's so overwhelming, so beyond our control, we have to find a way to make sense of it. So instead of only ranting, as Isaiah once did, about the ways of others and the wrong that they're doing, perhaps we need to discover our own disaster sermon. A piece of scripture that helps us gain perspective, however small, something that brings understanding or even a measure of peace amid the turmoil. Greg's advice to us all those years ago was simple. Write a disaster sermon before the disaster happens. You may never preach it, but you'll benefit from the experience, and perhaps one day you will be better equipped when disaster does come.